How's it going, everybody? Brian Alvarez here on Wrestling Observer Live. We are here every day, Monday through Friday, noon Pacific, 3 Eastern, Sundays, 3 Pacific, 6 Eastern. We got a lot to talk about today. Another week begins, and tonight is Monday Night Raw. I don't know if you've been paying attention or not, but advertised for the first segment tonight on Monday Night Raw is Roman Reigns. But wait, you say, Roman Reigns? Roman Reigns is a SmackDown guy. Yeah, you're right. Superstar shakeup. It'll never end. It is a annual, year-long superstar shakeup at this rate. Going on 4 weeks now, and guys still just going back and forth, willy-nilly. They had months to figure out who was going where, and on week 1, they switched some people. On week 2, they switched some more people. On week 3, they switched some people back. On week 4, Roman Reigns is opening up Raw despite being a SmackDown talent. Why? Because the ratings suck. And this is their plan to turn everything around. Roman Reigns is going to be on Raw tonight. So there you go. We can talk about that here today. They've got the XFL has signed some television deals. That's good news for the XFL. We got some notes on New Japan and WWE and some SmackDown notes. We got the odds for the upcoming Money in the Bank, if you're interested in those. And yes, investors talking about WWE and why I thought the investors were starting to figure things out, but then I read what Brandon Ross said about the future of WWE and the president of WWE as well. I got to read some of this because it's mind-boggling to me. These people do this for a living, and they don't know what they're talking about. So we'll talk about that here today and so much more. If you want to join us, the phone number, 844-411-5411. That is toll-free, 844-411-5411. And text messages, 425-780-7566. We shall kick it off after the break. Wrestling Observer Live. Back on the show, Brian Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, also of WrestlingObserver.com. Let's go through the daily update at WrestlingObserver.com, and I saw this note. It says here, investors talking that WWE will have a resurgence in October and blame the bad quarter on Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, and AJ Styles being out. I said, what? So I had to read it. Because when you see a headline, you should click on the link and read the whole article and then make your determinations about what's fact and fiction after you read the entire article. In a note to clients, BTIG analyst Brandon Ross, he's an analyst. He does this for a living. You entrust your money to Brandon Ross if you're investing here. He added that while WWE's content woes were blamed on injuries in quarter 1, the decline really started in quarter 3. Well, he's right about that. When weakness in engagement metrics first started to surface. Ross said he took a holistic approach to earlier declines, especially since engagement for WWE's AVOD platforms were on the rise. Okay, so this is a guy who manages your money for a living if you're investing here. And he looked at the WWE earnings report where they lost real money. Like virtually every single business metric was down. But they got more people watching some video on demand stuff on like YouTube, and so he concluded that everything is fine. This is a quote. However, after the performance in quarter 1, 2019, that would be January through March, which included a first-time sequential decline in online video consumption, it is clear that the content is not resonating with the fan base. Okay, so he didn't look at house show business is down, and there are fewer people buying the WWE network, and there are fewer people buying merchandise, and there are fewer people watching TV. Instead, he looked at YouTube videos. They're down year to year, so basically, there must be less interest in the product. The company, he said, has pointed to a number of superstar absentees in 2019, which has included Roman Reigns' illness and injuries to other top stars such as Seth Rollins and AJ Styles, but there is likely more to it. Okay, how long would it take? You could make one phone call to somebody who watches the product. You could even go on Wikipedia and follow the careers of those 3 guys and find out how long were these people actually out of action in quarter 1. Well, let me answer this for you. Roman Reigns was back in February. So Roman Reigns missed January, but he came back in February. You know what happened when he came back in February? He actually boosted things for a week or two. So Roman Reigns actually was there for most of quarter one. Seth Rollins had a back injury, and Seth Rollins missed a few house shows, but he was on TV every single week. He never missed any time. AJ Styles, I don't even know what he's talking about. I don't think AJ Styles missed any time whatsoever in all of quarter one. In fact, AJ Styles was hurt in quarter one, but he missed no time, and he went on the internet to tell us that, in fact, he was not hurt, even though he was hurt because it later came out that he was injured, but he still didn't miss any shows. So, what is this guy talking about? Nobody missed any time. None of these names that he mentioned missed any time in quarter one, with the exception of a month for Roman Reigns, who then returned, by the way, and boosted things for a little while. Says Vince McMahon himself told us in quarter three that the live show needed a remake, and on Thursday's earnings call spoke to the hiring of new writers and a new live events team to help them out. So this guy, he listened to Vince in quarter three of 2018 tell us that he knew how to fix house shows, and in quarter four and quarter one nothing happened, and he's still believing the guy. New writers? What are new writers going to do? They ain't going to do nothing. And a new live events team. What is a new live events team going to do? Oh, they're going to maybe have a little more pyro. Maybe they'll spice up the look of the house shows. No one's going to the house shows to see them being spiced up because nobody sees the people on the show as stars, so nobody's buying tickets to see them live. That's the problem. This guy is entrusted with your money. I was infuriated by reading this. Get with the program, dude. So there you go. That's a story. It's like when I read a story in like a New York Times, for example, where they write a story about wrestling, and it's like, dude, 50% of the stuff in this article is wrong. Then, I'm not one of those anti-government guys or anti-news media guys, but it is a little bit concerning when you write a news article about the wrestling for the New York Times, you get half the story wrong, then I'm like, should I be reading anything in this newspaper? What are you getting wrong about everything else? Half? Are you getting half wrong about every story you write because you're messing it up with pro wrestling? Anyway, I'm done. Take some calls here in a while.
Business built on speculation, boss.
Oh, dude, get out of here. It is built on speculation, but they don't even know what's going on now, much less with... How am I supposed to trust that they know what's going on in the future, what they're speculating on, if they can't even get right what happened over the last 3 months that already happened?
What's the stock price at today?
I don't know.
It's probably pushing 100 again. Just because.
Nope, it's $86. It's still down $15. More than that, $17 from the peak before this earnings report came out. It dropped to 85 and it has not recovered. It's still 85.
Well,
but dude,
it'll ricochet back up with the big money.
Maybe I should put my money in a mattress.
Sort of stuff. I don't. Well, actually, yes. I mean, look, again, this is actually really nothing new. I mean, you hear this if you're into something that is having an IPO coming or something like that. You hear all of these analysts and all of these people talk about something that they have no idea about, and I'm sure somebody is sitting in a locker room right now going, "Oh yeah," but still, it's, you know, look, we're gonna have football guys or wrestling guys talking about football today with the XFL making deals, and we always have people talking about the inner workings of the media and all that sort of stuff. So it's banter land. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to your money, it's like a completely separate issue from wrestling or WWE stock or anything else. Yeah, be very vigilant where you decide to put things because, again, it's a big gambling market. That's all it is at the end of the day. That's all that stuff is. So you just hope your money makes money. But one of the ways your money can make money is just don't spend it. It's not about what you make. It's what you save, kid.
This must be from somebody in WWE. Absent wrestlers were a pretty significant blow. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn are just two key players they were missing. Dude, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn are back. It hasn't meant a thing.
Yeah, well, I'll spot you Kevin Owens, but I mean...
No, forget that, dude. You can't even spot Kevin Owens. Stone Cold Steve Austin disappeared from WWE in 1999. And it didn't make a bit of difference. And he is a bigger star than every single person in this company put together. There are a half dozen guys missing every single quarter. Minimum a half dozen guys missing every single quarter since this company started up. Don't tell me there's more now, and that's why we're at record lows.
You're right, but that's a loaded way to say it when it's like, well, Steve Austin, look what else was there at the time. Look at the stars that they had and what they had built at the time.
Exactly.
So
you're right. Look what they have now. Nothing. So it doesn't matter if these guys are missing or if they're there. They come back, and it doesn't make a difference. I love Kevin Owens. I love Sami Zayn. They came back. It meant nothing. They have not meant one thing for the numbers. The numbers are lower now that they're back than when they were gone. So don't tell me that the problem was that people were gone. Now, hey, everybody, guess what? All those names that they listed that were gone in the earnings call, they're all back now, and the show set record lows last week. So that tells me that them being gone was not a factor. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Roman Reigns back tonight. We talked about this yesterday. He's in the opening. This is so awesome. They're announcing that he is in the opening segment of the show while at the same time pretending that the McMahons don't want him on the show. All right, whatever. He's back. Anyone think that this is going to turn the show around?
I hope he faces Baron Corbin in the main event.
Yeah, you probably will. So, I mean, come on. Just have my music ready, Reigns wrote. I'll be kicking things off on Raw right at 8 p.m. So, wouldn't the McMahons just not have his music ready?
Yeah,
they're in charge of the promotion, but like the music guy, like they know the music guy's been told to get his music ready. They can't go to the music guy and go, hey, don't play that music, dude. He's not allowed on this show.
You know what Roman needs to do? He needs to ride in on something, because here's the thing. They're going to keep pushing him again, and it's going to end up, people are going to start pushing back. So you might as well break out, like Steve Austin stuff, break out all those sorts of gimmicks. Have him ride in on some sort of monster truck or SUV or whatever the thing would be right now. Rusev's tank.
Hey, back in a moment. Observer Live. Back in the show, Brian Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, also of WrestlingObserver.com. This person says, I love this show, but do we have to keep talking about WWE all day? What about New Japan, Ring of Honor, Impact, CMLL, anything else? This is just getting repetitive. Well, two things. Number one, we talked a lot about New Japan yesterday on the show. And number two, unfortunately, we don't plan very well. We're in the middle of history right now. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
I have not seen a company collapse at this rate since World Championship Wrestling. Now, there is one massive difference here, okay? Well, two of them. As horrible as it is, and it's as horrible as I've ever seen WWE ever in my lifetime as a fan, as horrible as this booking is, okay? It's still not quite as bad as the Vince Russo run in World Championship Wrestling. So we have not quite achieved that level yet, all right?
No.
The other massive difference is WCW was not worth $7 billion. So they are largely idiot-proof. I mean, honest to God, WWE could get like 5 viewers for Raw, and they're still going to stay in business. They lose their television. I mean, worst case scenario, if somehow they lost all of their television and they had to run television on the WWE network, they could still survive for years and years and years based on how much money the company is worth. The stock price would plummet, but they would still be able to survive for years and years and years. So it's not quite WCW, but as far as like how quickly the actual wrestling aspect of WWE is collapsing, the interest among fans, I mean, I have not seen anything like this since World Championship Wrestling. Even Impact didn't collapse at this level. Impact just stayed at a bad level for like their entire run until they lost Spike TV, and then it sort of fell off there. But I have not seen anything like this in my lifetime. We're covering history here. And the vast, like 99% of the text messages I get are about this show. So that's what we got to talk about. I wish I didn't have to. I wish this company was doing great and All Elite Wrestling had a television deal and they were running TV and we could talk about that. Maybe that'll be what happens by the end of this year. But right now we must cover history. And this is history.
It's your show.
It's our show, Mike. But we are covering history here.
We are. Here's the thing, though, is we say WWE's business model and how it is set up. To the outsiders that look at it as a giant movie studio with this big dip of them, well, now they're just, it's still really valuable, but they're just really putting out bad product, or however they're viewing this. I don't know what it is, but like you said, their valuation is so high that no, this is not exactly WCW. The concern is still something that is going to have to be seen down the line. Was are you actually making any fans, and how do people really view you? Because you know how you want to be viewed, and you know how you didn't want to be viewed to pro wrestling fans, which was as pro wrestling. So you've created this beast for yourself, and you've created this image for yourself, and you've wrapped yourself up in it, and it's made you boatloads and boatloads of money. But is it actually got any substance around it? Does it actually have any teeth, any legacy behind this the same way that pro wrestling does? We're going to have to see. That, I think, is even more of a concern than what's really happening right now in this moment of what's going on. Because, again, all of these fears to these people on the outside are going to go away anyway. They don't care about what's happening on TV. All they're caring about is the stock price and these numbers. So it doesn't really matter anyway. So yeah, we're talking about this, but still, their money is so large, it's not going to matter anyway. Talking about pro wrestling again and some of those things that happened in the past, maybe actually we should do that the same way you actually had, these parables and these things that you were saying and talking about WWE before, because that's what they're missing right now. All of those things that worked in the past, that's what they're not doing with all of this talent that they have at their disposal, with all of this time that they have, with all of these writers to build these stories. That's what's missing, is the wrestling part of it. And, maybe we should be talking a lot more about that and not giving them what they want and bending into just the obvious thing, which is the banter of daily WWE.
We're giving WWE what they want by talking every day about how they're collapsing. I don't think that's what they want. Listen, when big news happens in other companies, I'll talk about it. But right now, the big news is WWE. And I will talk about other stuff when it comes up. I got some other notes here as well. But here's what I got for somebody. I must thank whoever this is. He didn't put his name here, but his email involves the word Mizanin. I don't think this is the Miz, okay? But he spent hours to go through and do what I had requested somebody do, which is find out how many times WWE has advertised something for Raw and SmackDown and delivered versus non-delivered. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
I am so happy that this was done, because for years I have been giving news on this show, and when it doesn't happen, I've had to listen to geeks on the internet say that Brian made things up, and his excuse is always that plans change. It's his excuse for when he gets something wrong. Well, here's your data, everybody. This is from April 7, 2018 to April 30, 2019, a little over 1 year. You ready for this? WWE did a total of 237 announcements on their social media for both Raw and SmackDown, okay? Out of those 237 announcements, only 95 of them took place. Others were either entirely canceled or modified. For example, they would say it would be Miz versus Rey Mysterio for the Intercontinental title, but ended up being Miz versus Jack Swagger, whatever.
And we can't prove that's not storyline, so.
That is a 40% delivery rate. In other words,
39.9.
When they advertise something for Raw and SmackDown over the past year, plans have changed 60% of the time. Here's another fun fact for you, everybody. NXT in the last year on social media made 45 announcements in the last 52 weeks. Would you like to guess how many of those out of the 45 were changed or didn't happen?
I'll say 3.
Now, granted, it is a taped show, okay? But of the 45 announcements that NXT made on social media, every single one of them was delivered, okay? So there you go. That's one of the big things, NXT in the main roster. When NXT announces something, they actually deliver it. When WWE announces that something is going to happen on Raw and SmackDown, it only happens 39.9% of the time. The other 60.1% of the time, it changes.
Well, with the taped show, you better be 100%, or somebody in social media needs to get fired there. When you're dealing with a madman the other way, it actually, maybe it could be worse. And you talked about Impact, too. The thing with WWE is, over time, they were becoming Impact, booking themselves into corners, way back when remember Ryback and CM Punk? It's like, why did they book that match? Well, because they had a cage ready. It's what? That's why you're doing this?
Yeah.
Because you backed yourself into a corner.
They had to end one streak because of that.
Yeah, all of those things that they did and that Impact was doing, that it's just like with the crappy themed shows that booked themselves into a corner and all these same mistakes. It's like, man, WWE would never make those kind of mistakes. It's like, there they are making those same mistakes. It is really amazing that creatively this is where they're at, but they've needed a shake-up for quite some time. The look of the show has needed a shake-up for quite some time. There's just these same things over and over again. It's just, it is, the lion is really, really in winter, and at some point, somebody needs to get a thaw going here.
I gotta say something about CM Punk and Ryback, by the way. So, every day I get emails, texts, people post on the board. Everyone's got a different way to reinvent the wheel and turn this thing around. And the reality of the situation is, Ryback and CM Punk was a match where Ryback was unbeaten and CM Punk was the champion, and they were being put in a cage. And literally, one of those things was going to end. Either Ryback was going to win the championship from CM Punk, or Ryback's unbeaten streak would end. That's it. And you know what? It drew. Ryback versus CM Punk drew because they had not beaten Ryback and they had not beaten Punk. And they put them in a cage together, and people bought the show because they knew that something real was going to happen. One of those things was going to end.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's like a simulated sport, or
it's
maybe
crazy.
An old story that always seems to work about the movable object and the irresistible force. I'll be damned how that works.
Caller, you're on the air. What's going on?
Hey guys, what's going on? It's Heath in Concord, California. Look, to the dismay of that last texter, I'm going to continue to talk about WWE here, especially Raw tonight. So they're bringing Reigns back to Raw. Isn't this counterproductive, especially since they still want to push him to the moon? It's quite obvious. This is going to result in everything that's been going on for the last, 4 years with this guy? And they think that he's going to turn the ratings around? I don't know. Just what's your opinion on that? That just blows me away.
I can't remember what show it was. I want to thank you very much for the call, but there was a... Oh, you know what? It was SmackDown when WWE announced that Vince McMahon was going to announce the biggest SmackDown acquisition ever, and he came out, and first he pretended like he was the Drifter, which means that, like, Vince's character is an old, out-of-touch guy who should be removed from power. That's his character. But then, of course, at the end of the day, they revealed that the biggest acquisition in SmackDown history is Roman Reigns. And when the show's over, Michael Cole or whoever it was, they're screaming at the top of their lungs. It wasn't Cole, it was Tom Phillips, I guess. But they're screaming at the top of their lungs that Roman Reigns is here. He's the face of SmackDown. He's going to be the face of WWE into the future. And I thought, dude, he's going to get booed. Like, this is the beginning. They're going to start booing him again. And if they're bringing him to Raw tonight, and they're going to be pushing him on Raw and SmackDown in the middle of this draft, he is going to get booed again. It's coming. Back in a moment, Observer Live. Boy, was I distracted by that conversation during the break. Maybe I'll talk about it on another day. Next time Dom screws something up here on this show, I'll tell everyone this story. All right, so listen. I'm going to try and go through my text messages here and find a text message not about WWE. Okay?
Oh, God, let it be about wrestling.
Let's see.
Of the pro style.
Here. What can I find?
Of the old style.
Let's see.
80s.
Owens, Charlotte, Seth, Superstar, special guest hosts. WWE promote pro wrestling. Let's see here. Carmella, is she a face or heel? Who the hell knows? Oh, here we go. There's one I found so far.
All right.
So Sonny Kiss is being advertised in the over-the-budget Battle Royal for AEW. Does this mean he's out of the Lucha Underground lawsuit? I don't know, but I will try to find out for you. What do you want me to do?
Is that the only one?
Well, there was one other that asked if anybody had been hurt on the Impact Wrestling pay-per-view or the special show they did. They did a show on Impact Plus yesterday, a special show. And I'm currently checking on the injury report, and if I hear anything, I will let you know ASAP. So, there you go.
Well, as Lance said on the show with you, Brian Cage not dead. I'm not sure what his condition is right now, but he looked like he was. God, that looked awful. And there were a couple of bumps on that show that looked absolutely terrible. Is Lance who? How many matches was he? What does he do there? What is his role there? Is he just a backstage help? Is he a?
He's working agent? As an agent, and I'm sure
is he coming up with these spots. Are these Lance spots?
I'm pretty sure Lance is not coming up with
Spanish flies off the ring apron to the floor.
He's not an agent on every match. Let's go to the phones. You're on the air. What's going on?
Yeah, I have a question. Do you think it would affect the ratings that much if they had a couple more jobber matches on Raw or SmackDown?
Like jobber versus jobber?
No, like a jobber versus, a talent they're trying to get over.
Sure. Here's my answer, and it's a little bit complicated, but I want to thank you very much for the call. At this point, I do not think that putting a squash match on Raw is going to hurt the ratings one bit. I don't think that it's going to increase the ratings at all immediately, but I do think that if you had 2 or 3 2-minute squash matches on every show, it would allow guys like Bobby Roode, for example, to start to build their ascent if they decide they want to push them again, and it would not require Bobby Roode to beat Ricochet and then have Bobby Roode disappear the next week and Ricochet gets put in the Money in the Bank ladder match. I mean, that was kind of the point of squash matches, one of the points of the squash match back in the day. The idea was you get over the wrestler, you make them look strong, you build up their moves, you show people what they do for a finish, for example, and then you don't have them face each other on television except in very rare occurrences. And then the stars can wrestle each other on house shows, and when they come to town, you find out, oh my God, it's not Bret Hart versus Tom McGee or whoever on television. It's going to be Bret Hart versus Mr. Perfect. I got to go to this show. I can't see this stuff on television. Now, granted, it's a different world. You can't do that nowadays. Nobody's going to watch your show if it's nothing but stars wrestling jobbers, and you have to go to house shows to see them actually wrestle each other. But you can slow things down a lot. Seth Rollins can be on TV, and he doesn't have to go out there and beat Drew McIntyre, because you put a Seth Rollins-Drew McIntyre match together, then you realize you don't want to beat either guy, and so you do a stupid finish, or you end up beating Drew McIntyre, and then you have to dance around why he didn't actually get beaten. Well, how about you have Drew McIntyre squash somebody? How about you have Seth Rollins squash somebody, and then you do an angle afterwards? I mean, there is a, I would even go as far as say there is a need for squash matches in 2019. But they very, very rarely do them.
Well, they need, I think, more than the squash matches, and I'm for them, is they just need the hierarchy back. And I know it goes back to that evil pro wrestling thing again, but when everybody's the star, or when everybody's even because you don't want to get one person too up on another person, then nobody's ever going to get up on the other person. And you're not going to have these people, and you're going to have guys like Roman Reigns that people think are being treated differently than everyone else because they are, and they'll push back on it. And it leads to, again, kind of where we're at right now. Becky Lynch, gets beaten to death, but how did she get over? She went on a streak where she beat a bunch of people with her move. It's as simple as that sometimes. And if they instituted that more, they'd be a lot better off, and you don't have to kill everybody. There's levels to this thing. There's the very bottom of the barrel, and then there's levels on the way up. So, just because person A, beats person B, it doesn't mean they're going to beat person C and D. But it's okay. You can move people and slot them up and down and have them win and beat people on the way up and be the person that gets beat on the way back down again as you shuffle through people. It's not that hard, but because they want everybody to be quote unquote a superstar and do the 50-50 thing and nobody really gets over too much on somebody else, it just doesn't work. And you talked about the streaks earlier on. Why does that always work? Because it's different, and you have somebody who's, heaven forbid, a winner, and shockingly, it's amazing what happens. People like kind of backing winners. So, that's why people with winning streaks usually end up having a lot of success, usually before a promoter screws it up.
Person says, what do you think about Okada versus Jericho? Clearly this person did not listen yesterday. Talked about this on the show, but I'll tell you again.
Talk about it again? There's layers to this.
I want to see this match. I saw Okada's record-setting reign, and he ran through everybody. And in the middle of that, he also ran through a bunch of people in the G1. And he faced Sonata this past weekend, very shortly after facing Sonata a few months earlier. And if the option is run through everybody again, or face Chris Jericho, for sure I'm down with him facing Chris Jericho. It'll be a very different kind of match than usual, and the fans seemed into it when it was announced, and Okada seemed excited about it, and I'm ready for something different. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I don't know where they go from there. I mean...
Oh, man, they can go anywhere. If you think about it, with Jericho, the question is, where do you go? Which is, it's going to be to Florida for quite some time, because I think, you use Jericho now. That's it. You don't have to see him anymore. Maybe you want to come back at the Dome, or because at the Dome especially is going to be 2 days, and if you're going to bring Jericho and Omega there, that would probably be the time to do it. But for Okada, I mean, it leaves a lot. You look at the first half of his year, it's been 2 matches with Jay White, essentially. It's going to be this match with Jericho, and it's been 2 matches with Sonata. It still opens up the entire rest of the year. You're going to have some clearance coming out of Ibushi and Naito. You're going to have the G1 still, where he's probably going to drop a match to Sonata at that point, and maybe we're going to see a change out of him. He's been influential, and wherever Sonata goes this year, we're going to have that. And there's a lot of options and a lot of title matches and a lot of things that are open for Okada for the rest of the year. So they've done it's not been the as flashy as it's been in the past for Tanahashi and at some other points for champions to begin the year. But it's, once you take the Garden out of it, obviously that was a big deal for New Japan and everything and for Okada. But, he's had a relatively quiet year, and there's still a lot left to go.
First says, I like the Roman Reigns return to Raw. He's not in a major program on SmackDown. Actually, he is. His program with the Drifter, who's a top heel on SmackDown. His presence on the show would totally overshadow the Kofi feud with Kevin Owens. Here's the thing, everyone. The issue is not that Roman Reigns is going to have programs on Raw. That's not the issue at all, okay? The issue is that they drafted him to SmackDown, and now he's just going to come back to Raw. So, I don't know if it was this show or the last show. I will not do the entire analogy again, but I'll shorten it. If I sit and watch the extended version of The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, if I watch the first one, okay?
Definitely, Lance.
If I watch that 4-hour extended version, all right? If I watch the second movie in the trilogy, I can promise you that what I watched in the first movie is going to continue on into the second movie, right? And then whatever happens in the second movie, I mean, pretty damn good chance if I watch the third movie, like it's going to play off in that third movie, right? Okay, so knowing that, people will sit down and spend 4 hours watching the first movie, 4 hours watching the second movie, and 4 hours watching the third movie. Some people, like every year, sit down and watch all 3 movies in a row for 12 straight hours, okay? You're only doing that if, like, the first movie plays into the second movie, plays into the third movie. It's a trilogy, right? Okay. So if you're asking me to sit down and watch 3 hours of Raw on Monday night and 2 hours of SmackDown on Tuesday night, then if you want me to watch 3 more hours of Raw the following Monday, then damn sure the first show better play into the second show. Why would you do a Superstar Shakeup and have me sit my ass on the couch and watch 3 hours, and then over the course of the next month repeatedly tell me that I wasted my time? That Charlotte ended up going to Raw, but now she's back on SmackDown, or whatever the hell happened. I can't even remember what happened anymore. Like, there have been so many switches back and forth. This is one of the problems with the show. You are not rewarded for watching the 3 hours of the show. What you watch this coming Monday may or may not have anything to do with what happens next Monday. If you invested your time in that SmackDown Superstar Shakeup, if you invested your time in that big storyline about the biggest acquisition in WWE history, if you invested your time to see Roman Reigns move to SmackDown, and then a week later, he's just back on Raw, why do you invest your time in these shows? Well, the answer is fewer and fewer people are investing their time in the shows. And more people are DVRing the shows. 25% of people are DVRing Raw and SmackDown. Do you know how that compares to sports? Live sports, about 5% of the people DVR. These people that go, well, it's 2019, Brian, everybody DVRs. No, 95% of sports fans watch television. Not streaming. They watch television, and they watch their sports live. WWE is down to 25%. You know how that compares to your average television show? Your average television show is 25%. So WWE is doing no better than television, and they sold these shows to Fox with the idea that WWE is fake sports and the DVR percentage is going to be similar to actual sports, when in reality, the DVR numbers are actually similar to normal television shows. And a part of that is because people don't watch live. They pick and choose what they're going to watch, and they fast forward on their DVR. 25% of them do that.
That's a big concern, too, and that's something that you don't know what everybody is doing, but it's like how many things are getting fast-forwarded, how many things don't matter for people, like because you've made them not matter.
You've made it not matter by Roman Reigns showing up on Raw. I have no problem with the guy Roman Reigns being on the show Raw. Like, fine, he could do some stuff on Raw, but business-wise, you're just teaching people this stuff doesn't matter, that you spent a month hyping up.
By the way, you use a good trilogy like The Godfather.
It doesn't matter the trilogy. I'm just making a point.
Use The Godfather.
I can use any trilogy I want.
The Godfather.
Because there are very few trilogies that get produced in Hollywood where one has nothing to do with the second, or it's totally different in the second. It just doesn't happen. There's a degree of consistency in any trilogy you'll ever see.
Oh, did they ever hire a consistency editor yet?
I'm sure they've hired like 10 and they've all been fired. I don't know. I mean, how could you even do that job?
I was like, who do they report to?
You hire a 23-year-old kid, and his job is to go up to Vincent Kennedy McMahon and go, homeboy, this doesn't make sense. You advertise this match. He'll be fired in a heartbeat. Or you're just not going to tell him. That's the most ridiculous job I've ever heard of.
And they keep doing these surveys, and they do things like they made the move for Kofi. It's not like it's such a weird. They have such a weird relationship with their fans and how they view them, and frankly, for how they view each other inside that company.
Back in a moment, Observer Live. Back on the show, Brian Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, also of WrestlingObserver.com. Spurs says, do you think Vince will have Goldberg beat Kofi for the title in Saudi Arabia and then start something with Lesnar? It could help the ratings and give Brock a reason to go to SmackDown Live. Honest to God, I think Goldberg's going to Saudi Arabia to do a 30-second squash, and that'll be it. I mean, if you followed Goldberg's first run when he was like 2 years younger, it was a lot of work. He suffered so many injuries. It was so hard at 50 years old, and I guess, he's 52 now? How old is Goldberg now? But anyway, it takes a lot of hard work to beat Goldberg, and I don't think that he's going to be returning for a series of matches or anything like that. He's 52 years old now, so I think he's going to try to get in the best shape that he can, and he's going to go in there and have a quick match, and that'll be I've been wrong before, but I think that's the extent of what we'll see with Goldberg.
And then Goldberg chance turning into William chance for Goldberg there. I wonder if it's going to be with Elias or what exactly the plan is.
Probably. Elias would be a great victim. I'm trying to think who else.
Daivari.
I mean, yeah, he could do whoever.
I mean, honestly, because it's so weird. This whole thing is it's bizarre. It really is.
Well, everyone, tonight is Raw, and we'll see what happens on the show. They've got matches announced for SmackDown tomorrow. We talked about them on Sunday, but we may as well wait because God only knows if they'll take place. We'll update it again tomorrow. But Raw going up against the two NBA playoff games this week. The Bucks versus the Celtics starting at 7 Eastern. Golden State Warriors versus Houston Rockets at 9:30 Eastern. So yeah, we'll see what Roman Reigns does to these numbers. And we're out of time, everybody. I want to thank you all for listening here today. We're here every day, Monday through Friday, noon Pacific, 3 Eastern, Sundays, 3 Pacific, 6 Eastern. Thanks, Mike, as always. Callers and listeners, everybody in the studio. We'll talk to you next time. Wrestling Observer Live.
You guys are clear. Great show.